Game theory was then established by John von Neumann in 1928, and in 1950, the first mathematical discussion of the prisoner's dilemma appeared, and around this time, John Nash developed a criterion for mutual consistency of players' strategies, known as the Nash equilibrium, applicable to a wider variety of games than the criterion proposed by von Neumann and Morgenstern. Nash even proved that every finite n-player non-zero sum and non-cooperative game has what is now known as a Nash equilibrium in mixed strategies. Moreover, game theory experienced a flurry of activity in the 1950s, during which the concepts of the core, the extensive form game, fictitious play, repeated games, and the Shapley value were developed. The 1950s also saw the first applications of game theory to philosophy and political science.
It really does go way back. Would you mind giving me more examples so that I could understand more on how it can be applied and how it relates to politics and the elections?
Of course. So the first example I'll be giving is the most common game theory application, which is the prisoner's dilemma. It's defined as a paradox in decision analysis in which two individuals, acting in their own self-interest, do not produce the optimal income. The typical prisoner's dilemma is set up in such a way that both parties choose to protect themselves at the expense of the other participant. As a result, both participants find themselves in a worse state than if they had cooperated with each other in the decision-making process. An example of which this can be applied is towards the economy, and the common thread is situations where the incentives faced by each individual decision-maker who gets to choose would induce them each to behave in a way that makes them all collectively worse off, while individually avoiding choices that would make them all collectively better, if all could somehow cooperatively choose. An example of this is the tragedy of the commons. It may be in everyone's collective advantage to conserve and reinvest in the propagation of a common pool, natural resource in order to be able to continue consuming it, but each individual always has an incentive to instead consume as much as possible, as quickly as possible, which then depletes the resource. Finding some way to cooperate would clearly make everyone better off. Moving on, another example of game theory is that of the median voter theorem. This is where politics and elections come into play. In microeconomics and game theory, the median voter theorem states that in a majority rule voting system, the candidate or party most preferred by the median voter will be elected. In a mathematical sense, this entails that the favorite candidate of a person in the middle of the probability distribution picks the winner of the election.